Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar about your VAD, understanding the big picture to get you started. Thank you so much for joining us today to discuss the VISTA Assignment Description, which we call the VAD. This webinar is especially useful for newer VISTA supervisors and sponsor staff who may be just starting to create and update VADs, and it can also be useful for seasoned staff who feel stuck and maybe they just need some rejuvenation about the overall purpose and framework of the VISTA Assignment Description. My name is Eric Powell, and I'm an AmeriCorps VISTA training specialist with the Corporation for National and Community Service. I proudly served as an AmeriCorps VISTA member and an AmeriCorps VISTA leader, and I'm very happy to now be on staff in the VISTA training unit. In my current role as VISTA training specialist, I really focus on developing training and working with VISTA sponsors and supervisors to help them understand their role better so they can successfully lead their VISTA project. I'll be hosting and presenting today's webinar, as well as facilitating the chat activities throughout the webinar with my co-presenter and the live question and answer session at the end of the webinar. And also joining us today are the wonderful Jeff Banis and the amazing Kim Adams from our partners at LSI, who will be managing the Zoom technology. You will also see them in the chat panel posting some links and questions, as well as assisting with various aspects of today's webinar. Let's quickly look at our goals for today. By the end of the webinar, we would like you to be able to articulate the elements of an effective VAD. After all, you want to write effective VADs, and we want you to as well, so you need to know what goes into a VAD in the first place. We want you to define VISTA's focus on alleviating poverty through capacity building activities. And as you probably know by now, the VISTA program is all about eliminating poverty. Instead of direct service, VISTA members and their VAD need to focus on activities that build capacity of the VISTA project. And last, but certainly not least, we want you to begin to understand the purpose of the VAD and its many uses, because the VAD is not just used to outline the members' activities, and you should carefully consider its purpose and overall meaning. We're going to cover quite a bit in the short time we have today. We'll talk about what is a VAD. We're going to describe what makes a VAD, why it's important, and how it's integral to the start of your VISTA project. Sustainability. This is one of the 4 key principles of VISTA in most VAD activities. Building capacity. Another one of the 4 key principles of VISTA that really underpins what VISTA members should be doing. Under the framework for creating your VAD, we'll provide an explanation of the key components in your VAD. Then we'll segue to show you a couple of VISTA Campus resources that you can access. We'll then move into an evaluation and next steps to get you on your way to getting started and moving forward with your VADs. And we'll finally end with question and answer, answering as many questions as we can. Helping us reach these goals and follow our agenda is our wonderful guest speaker, Kathy Lenz of Development Plus Incorporated. Kathy has been working with AmeriCorps VISTA members and sponsors since 1998, so it's clear that she has a wealth of experience. And she's been working to help members begin their service and identify specific steps that they can take to succeed in what they are doing for their community and their organization. She has a lot of experience reviewing VISTA assignment descriptions, crafting well-written goals and objectives, general writing, and simply getting the job done. In addition to VISTA, she works with nonprofits across the U.S. and on multiple continents. Her current focus is on expanding her Financially Savvy Nonprofits online training program and her frequent posts regarding fundraising and organizational management on LinkedIn and Facebook. So now I'll turn it over to Kathy to get us started. Kathy, thanks for joining us, and take it away.
Hello, thank you. Welcome, everyone. First, I'd like to thank everyone for submitting their questions about the volunteer assignment descriptions when you registered and at the start of the session. I'll be answering some of these in today's session, and as Eric mentioned, please use the chat panel throughout the presentation to ask questions. I've already started jotting down the one that Katie put on. We're going to try to get to some of these during the presentation and others at the end. We have designed this so that you have time to interact with both of us, especially during the chat panel. And please note, we're having a second webinar in May so that we can talk about the parts of the VAD in more detail. So we'll use some of your questions at that time too.
In a second, you should see a poll appear on your screen. And when the poll does appear, there's a scroll bar. There's a couple of questions, so you'll need to scroll down to see them all. You can also expand the poll so that you can see all of the questions, all of the options. The question for you is, in what VAD stage are you at the present time? We know that people joining this webinar are probably at various stages in the VAD development. Today's webinar focuses specifically on getting started with the VAD, but there are different stages even within the process of getting started. So your choices are developing a plan. Maybe you haven't even started creating any VADs because you could be a brand new project. Creating first VADs ever. You just started off with the program and the project, and now you're creating the first VAD you ever had. Maybe you're creating new additional VADs. You already have some and you have Vistas in place, but you're getting ready to create new VADs for new Vista members. Or you could be updating current VADs and making adjustments before sending them off to the CNCF state and regional office. It's also possible that some of you might click on inherited VADs. You started as a supervisor and you never knew anything about the VADs, but they were given to you and they said, here, do something with it. So that's also an option as well. And then the last two options are unsure. Maybe you're a staff member of the VISTA project who doesn't work directly with the VADs, or you could be a brand new person on the VISTA project just getting situated. And then the last option is, I don't work with VADs. You could be part of the VISTA project, but not have anything specifically to do with the VAD. So we'll give you a few more seconds to respond. And I'll say it's not a trick question, because some of you might be in multiple stages simultaneously, such as being a VISTA project that's updating existing VADs while also creating new VADs for members and positions. But the poll does only allow you to select one option. So we'll go ahead and close the poll as it looks like most people have finished, and we'll go ahead and take a look at the results. So Kathy, based on what I'm seeing, it looks like an overwhelming number of the people that responded, 35% have indicated that their highest area that they're in now is creating new additional VADs. Their project might already have some existing VADs, and they want some advice and recommendations on how to correctly create new ones. And then it looks like it's tied for the last two, updating current VADs and inherited VADs, and then a few after that. So that's great. Thank you for that. That'll help us as we go throughout the webinar so that we understand that many of you already have VADs. And I do encourage you to think about creating a project timeline in relation to the VAD for yourself to make sure that you include a realistic and slightly flexible deadlines, making sure that you give yourself enough time to develop and maintain appropriate VADs.
So this is our chance. Thank you, everybody. That's really helpful to know where everybody's coming from. I want to get started with some basics. The VAD, VAD, stands for the Volunteer Assignment Description. The VAD actually details the activities that a VISTA member will perform during a year of service, along with the goals and the objectives of the VISTA project. And one question that came up earlier on as we were getting ready was asking, can we copy things from our application, or does it have to all be unique and made up all new? Actually, you can transfer the goals from your project plan into your VADs. And we'll talk more about how that looks when we get to that point. We also want to have people keep in mind, VISTA sponsors must fill out a VISTA Assignment Description or VAD form for each VISTA member who serves on a VISTA project. That means that each VISTA member should have their own VAD, and VADs are written per year per assignment. So let's think about that for a second. For example, a 3-year project will require 3 separate VADs, one for each VISTA. And a project with several VISTA members in the same year will require a unique VAD for each member. Now, I have worked with supervisors for several years now, and I can imagine a couple of you going, wait, I gave them all the same VAD. Or sometimes I've heard, but they're doing the same work in different communities, so why can't it be the same one? Let me be clear. We are saying a unique VAD for each VISTA member. And the question often people have is, well, why? Well, I'm going to ask you to tell me. Use the chat box and write the benefits to giving each VISTA a unique VAD.
I have a feeling we're going to get some pretty good answers. It seems like a very smart bunch. So let's see what answers they come up with in the chat to the question, what are the benefits of giving each VISTA member a unique VAD? Might be a little bit slow to respond. I know one of the comments that came in earlier, which kind of related to this question, was having VISTA members having their own VAD allows them to really see how each position is different, especially if you have multiple VISTAs at the same project, which is great. I see every community is different, which is true. So if you have VADs in different communities, the project could look very different. Andrea mentioned the VAD is more tailored to the project goals, the community they are serving, and the department within the organization the VISTA member will be working with. So again, it outlines specifically, it helps the VISTA member to understand their role and how it fits into the project. And I'll mention one more from Catherine. Capacity building is difficult, and with everyone having their own unique VAD, you want to make sure the framework is as clear as possible. Catherine, are you seeing anything that strikes your fancy?
I was going to say, Reginald put up there too, he had one earlier that talked about everybody's individual strengths. So it actually allows you to tailor, and that actually might be one of the reasons that people may make an adjustment, is they realize once their VISTA member comes on, hey, they have skills I wasn't even thinking about that could help this project. So that might be a consideration as well. Did you see he added another? It ensures the community goals can be completed by this particular person. Exactly. We want to make sure that we have that available to folks so that they know exactly what you're asking them to do within that particular community. What's the task at hand? What do they need to do in order to be successful in this effort? So when we take these volunteer assignment descriptions, or VADs, we want to keep in mind it's the foundation on which the entire VISTA member experience is built. Presenting a VISTA member with a strong VAD from the start of service actually ensures they'll know what they're doing. And this really helps them when they're starting out, because it makes it easier for you to supervise and manage their work contributions, and it increases the likelihood they will complete their year of service. And frankly, all of us want that, for them to be engaged and to be able to finish their year. Today, we will review the key elements that make up an effective VAD, and that it will help guide the members as they work on their activities so that they can truly be helping to eliminate poverty and build capacity in the organizations that they serve. Now, when we take a look at what does a VAD do, let's discuss some of the particulars about what a VAD does. I want to mention that supervisors can use the VAD in order to frame some really important conversations with the VISTA member. For each VISTA member, a VAD explains the project position and role that's been assigned specifically to them. It's really started serving as a position description, and in some cases the start of the work plan. So these VADs are used as a learning and orientation tool during the VISTA member orientation, and especially during the on-site orientation and training, or what we've referred to as the OSAT. That way you can conduct your help your members in their first couple of weeks in service know where they should really put their focus. We also want to point out that a complete VAD includes the goals, objectives, and capacity building activities that a member is expected to complete in order to satisfy the project needs. As I mentioned earlier, some of those are going to be a direct transfer from the work plan and project plan overall that you submitted initially. If we've written all of this well, it'll help translate the milestones that we've talked about in our proposal into actual realistic activities and members' activities so they know exactly what to focus on. The VAD is going to help VISTA members create an action plan with their service activities for their year of service. It is essential that our direct supervisors fully understand the VAD so they can truly support the VISTA member when there are questions. I also want to point out that the VAD indicates project priorities. It also talks about the organizational and community challenges and the purpose of the project. Someone asked at the very beginning of this, how do we ensure it addresses poverty? By talking exactly how this fits in. So it will help supervisors keep in mind the VAD is a living document. That VAD evolves and can be adapted as the project evolves, and when the unique strengths of a VISTA member become apparent. Now, significant changes to the VAD should be discussed with your CNCS state or regional office, as they must approve any VAD changes. I also want to point out that the VAD also aids you in recruiting for your VISTA positions. They will help you track your VISTA members' performance and on the reporting on achievements and accomplishments. So as you can see, the VAD really does play an integral and central role in your VISTA project.
Let me add in here a very quick note about eGrants. As you probably know, eGrants is the website where you as the VISTA supervisor or project director manage all things VISTA, from creating the VADs to submitting reports to CNCS. Even though this session will not discuss how to work with eGrants, you can find more information and details on the link that's posted in the chat, and you can also go to the Vista Campus website and search eGrants for more details on how to use it and how to make it work for you.
Now this next graphic I love, and someone asked earlier in the questions, they're like, how do we help our sub-sites and our different sponsors understand what's involved? This is a great graphic to use for that purpose. It helps capture some of the core ways that we can use the VAD to help make the VISTA service year more productive for the site and for the VISTA member. And that's the kind of thing that leads to project success. So as you can see here, the VAD has multiple uses. Both before the VISTA member starts at their site, that's that recruitment and selection process, once they arrive, which is going to be the performance and the reporting that we need to do, and after they leave, the record keeping of past progress and future activities for another VISTA member or for the organization. So we're going to ask folks to keep these uses in mind as you create a better VAD. We're going to start looking first on the left side of the slide. This is back before the VISTA member starts. The very first one is the outreach and recruitment. The VAD helps define who we're looking for, where do we find them, and how to connect with them. It's really a clue on where to advertise and how to promote the assignment in your community or online. Why? Because the VAD defines the work that needs to be done. You can use this as a guide to create your promotional materials. This will also help guide the development of the opportunity listing that you will find posted on eGrants. Somebody asked earlier, like, what's this opportunity listing? This teaser, that really what we're talking about. An opportunity listing is a 200-character teaser that'll help direct potential candidates to your service opportunity listing online through the iAmericorps site. Now, for those who may not know, eGrants and MyAmericorps are mirrored websites. The eGrants side is for supervisors, sponsors, and grantees, and MyAmericorps is for applicants, candidates, and members. The information crosses between the two websites, especially when it comes to member applications. So when you're entering information on eGrants about the prospective VISTA candidates, they're going to be able to start to see that in the MyAmericorps side. The VISTA program hosts a live webinar. They did that last year on how to create these compelling opportunity listings. They'll talk about how to keep it short, using action verbs, all that kind of good information. So if you go to the VISTA webinars page of the VISTA campus, you can actually watch that recording on demand. I also want to point out that we use this VAD for selecting a VISTA candidate. So once we've done our marketing, now it's selection time. The VAD helps you ask the right questions. Using the tasks listed in the VAD, you can help frame your questions. Tell me about a time when you have done, that's just an example, but in this case, you can tie your questions directly to the task that the VISTA member will be doing. Well, now we're going to move over to the right hand. This is where the VISTA member is now on site. So we're going to talk about the guiding and supporting members. When we're helping the VISTA members get started, we want to work with them on creating a plan for continued development. We can use the VAD on the on-site orientation and training, which is the OSAT, to get them grounded in the work and identify what additional training and development they need in order to be successful. The last step is assessing the performance. We're going to use the VAD to help VISTA members and the project define success. How are they doing? How is the project doing? What are the successes? What are the breakdowns, the failures? Are changes needed? Use this time for continuous quality improvement for the project and productive feedback to the VISTA and also to you as the supervisor. Now, we're talking here about the VISTA's key principles. As you know, there are 4 key ones that the VISTA program uses to support its mission. And we're going to briefly mention all 4 at various times throughout the session. But this webinar will primarily focus on building capacity because many projects may not fully understand it's based on the VADs that we've seen. So the first point, key principle I want to mention is ending poverty. Our top leading one person, one family, or one neighborhood at a time. We're talking about empowering communities. We're working through a long-term goal of getting the community involved and engaged in the project with the help of the VISTA member and their sponsor. We're also focused on building capacity. Instead of doing direct service, which includes ways the VISTA program thinks about evaluating the success of our VISTA projects and our members. So to build capacity, we increase the size of a project, or we increase the number of people served, or it might be improve the program's efficiency, or even improve the program's impact on the community. And the last one I want to mention, creating sustainable solutions. You know, we're talking about important activities, processes, systems, and others type of things that can be maintained and utilized into the future so that people will be able to use them once the VISTA member service and your VISTA project end. Although all the principles are important, we're going to focus specifically on building capacity, especially because at recent VISTA in-service trainings, or the ISTs, there's been an overwhelming number of VISTA members who mentioned that they're doing mostly or all direct service. Now, I have had conversations with supervisors about this because the things they'll say is, but sometimes a minimal amount of direct service may be necessary at the beginning of the project so that the VISTA member understands how the project works, or so they understand the target population and how to get things started. For example, a member who will be responsible for recruiting volunteer tutors may do a small amount of tutoring at the beginning to learn what it's like and utilize that in their capacity building activities. You know, in listening with supervisors and with some of the other CNCS staff, the best answer I've heard, include this in the on-site orientation training that you're doing. Make it a part of your assessment in the framework that we'll be talking about later today. The important point right now is that this is a major red flag. We want to make sure that supervisors and sponsors fully understand the difference between capacity building and direct service. So let's explore that a little bit more. Right now, we're looking at the project sustainability stool. The VISTA assignment description is based on several of VISTA's core principles. The VAD should be written in a way that includes the goals and objectives that build the capacity of the project. We want to make sure that it engages the community and subsequently can create sustainability of a VISTA activities and projects. When we say sustainable, we mean by that a project can continue without a VISTA being there. We often talk with VISTAs about them being one of the few people in a professional setting who are trying to work themselves out of a position because they are creating and expanding things such that the community and project staff can take it over after the VISTA member leaves. Let's look at the legs of the stool. These are the systems and the infrastructure that the VISTAs work with in their project. It's the capacity building part of the service. So you're going to see things like the communication capacity, which by the way includes technology, the program capacity, the human capacity, and the financial capacity. Those are the legs that help hold the stool up, that keep our nonprofits working. But please note the gray band that hold the legs together. It's held together by the work and the involvement of community and other stakeholders. That's the community engagement. Now here's the catch. VISTA members are not responsible for program sustainability. Their supervisors and their organizations are. But VISTAs can contribute to sustainability, and supervisors can write their VADs so that VISTAs serve with an eye towards sustainability. You want to think about this when you're thinking about the project with that big picture in mind. How are we working towards sustainability? So specifically, when we talk about the building capacity, think of the VISTA members as helping you fill in some of the plan for sustainability. In this case, when we're talking about building the capacity, VISTA members will help strengthen, expand, and increase the reach of anti-poverty organizations and programs by working on projects with staff and volunteers rather than directly with people in need. VISTA's focus on capacity building, not direct service, is unique from any other stream of service in CNCS. Within this VAD, you should find specific examples of VISTA member capacity building activities that relate to sustainability. Think about those legs of the sustainability stool. So for example, let's say that we're talking about volunteers and donors. VISTA members often assist their organizations in creating systems, for example, tracking donors or tracking volunteers. Once these systems are up and running, they can enhance your ability to meet community needs long after your VISTA project ends. Or let's look at the communication, and we want to have improved visibility and outreach. VISTA members often create communication templates and build relationships with local media that can increase your stature in the community, draw crowds to your fundraising events, and attract community members to your volunteer projects. If we were talking about improving our fund development efforts, which is our financial, VISTA members may serve on VISTA projects that seek to put together resources, manuals, and procedural documents on how to successfully communicate with funders. This may include step-by-step guides on how to further development funds and how to generate resources for the organization. Putting all of this in a written format helps others to understand the process as well. And the last one I want to mention is building partnerships. VISTA members help facilitate mutually beneficial and long-lasting partnerships between you and other like-minded local and national organizations. Now, in this particular screen, we show a partial list of the definitions of and the difference between capacity building and direct service. In the VISTA mission and program tutorial that hopefully you've already completed on the VISTA campus website, you've learned that VISTA service should focus on building the capacity of your VISTA project and organization and not focus on performing direct service. This is a unique aspect of the VISTA program which sets us apart from all the other AmeriCorps programs. Capacity building, in essence, is about helping your organization do more with what they have so they can serve more people or operate more efficiently. It helps an organization or community improve upon and sustain what it's doing. On the other hand, on the other side, direct service is providing tangible assistance directly to those people who need it. Direct service is not focused on sustainability or expansion of the organization's reach, but more on filling an immediate need for people. On the next slide, we're going to have you practice spotting the capacity building activities. So, you're going to find that we have two cards on this page, and we want to make sure that we hear from you. I'm going to read the cards for you, but you see the chat question is at the very top. Which of these examples is direct service and why? The card on the left says, number one, VISTA member designs guest speaker program featuring former clients who found job success. The card on the right, number two, VISTA member assists veterans with job searches. Only one of these is capacity building, the other is direct service. So again, in the chat, please type which one of these examples is direct service and why do you say so? As you type your response, think about the definition of capacity building and which activity would help your organization increase its efficiency, effectiveness, or the scale of its work.
And it may take you a minute to think. It's not necessarily a complicated question, but as you look at the examples on the screen, you might be unsure, but you can always take a guess. We, of course, hope that it's an educated guess. And like Kathy said, the reason why we're asking the why is because that's really the importance. Just saying one is direct service and one is not doesn't really help to understand the reasoning why. So adding that context as to why you think it's direct service makes a big difference. So we'll take a quick second and see what responses are coming in. Looks like a couple of people are typing responses now.
I have to be honest, Eric. Go ahead. What you got?
I see Reginald says assist veterans with job searches. The verb is key, assist. So he's thinking that one is direct service. I see another help VISTA members. Yep, so it looks like a lot of them, most people are saying that the assisting VISTA members is the direct service. Go ahead, Kathy.
Okay. I was just going to say that one of the things I love, this actually comes from an activity where we have even more cards like this. So we'll have a talk a little bit more about where people can get a set of the full cards if they're interested to use at their site. I love what they're saying in there about the words that they're using, who is it with. Bingo. Let's move it forward and show them the actual answer. You've got it. All those who said VISTA member assists veterans with job searches, you're on it.
Nice job. So now that you've taken a minute to identify them, we know that this was a fairly easy activity for a lot of you, and we're excited that you got the answer correct, because that means hopefully our knowledge is being imparted on you. We want you to think about specifically the direct service card. So the one that says, VISTA member assists veterans with job searches. So now with that one, in the chat panel, share your thoughts on how you could turn this specific direct service activity into a capacity building activity. And I'll mention that it may help to make it more personal, and think about if this activity was outlined in a VAD that you submitted and you were told that you had to make this activity a capacity building activity, how would you change it to still provide an activity that's appropriate for a VISTA member? And we know that this may take a minute or two, but again, we're looking at the direct service example on the right and thinking about if you were quickly given this, how would you think of turning the activity of VISTA member assists veterans with job searches into a capacity building activity? Kathy, I'll turn it to you to see what responses are coming in.
Okay. And one of the ones that came in from Allie is create a guide or manual for vets to use while job searching. So that creating a product, perfect. Reginald added, VISTA member developed a training program for staff to assist veterans for job searches. Bingo. So they're developing a training program to assist staff. These are all great leads. And this is the kind of thing that comes up when we do in-service training, because as we mentioned, we have had VISTAs come in with VADs and they're like, this has a lot of direct service in it. And so it becomes the question of, so how can we turn that around, since that's not our main focus? What can we do? And as we make those turnarounds, how does that fit in with the rest of the program and the rest of the, what it is that we're actually trying to accomplish? We've got those two have come in. I haven't seen any more notations, whether, oh, there's another. Create the flyer to an event where volunteers will assist veterans with job searches. Again, helping with that marketing piece, getting the communications out there. Wonderful. They've got that, they're on it. They have this. That's exactly what you want to see. So I'm going to thank everybody for that. And let's do one more comparison just to see how this looks. This again is two more examples.
And this time in the chat, we'll ask you to type which of these examples do you think is capacity building. So we're switching it up a little bit. And again, answer the question as to why you think it's capacity building. And Kathy, do you want to read the examples aloud again?
Certainly. On the left-hand side, we have number 1, VISTA member creates mentor training curriculum. And example number 2, VISTA member helps veterans identify affordable housing units. And I'm going to just remind you, just like Reginald pointed out, remember to look at the words used in the example as well as the overall focus of that activity. Which one seems more focused on direct service activities? Right now, we're trying to pick out which one is the capacity building.
So far, I see a couple of responses saying the one on the left is capacity building because of the word creates. It's a good answer. I think there's a few more answers coming in. VISTA is creating a training curriculum that can be passed on, again, relating to the one on the left, saying that one's capacity building. And then I see Faye said the one on the left is capacity building because creates talks about this can be a model for the present and the future.
Original added mentor training curriculum will remain after the VISTA leaves.
And I like what Jerry said. Jerry mentions the card on the left is capacity building, as creating a curriculum is increasing capacity. Again, it's not directly mentoring the person, it's creating a curriculum for that.
Let's go ahead and take a look at which one is capacity building. And I saw that this popped up for just a second, so some of you may have caught that and had gotten a help in there, but then we can still talk about why, which is the important part of the question.
So nice job to all of you. You got the answer correct, which again is wonderful. Keep in mind, though, that whether you have any responsibility with regard to your VADs or not, please be sure to make sure that you are taking notes for yourself and your VISTA project. As you know, this information is critical, and you want to make sure that your VISTA project only puts appropriate capacity building activities into the VAD, because the CNCS Office of Inspector General has been very strict about catching inappropriate direct service activities written in the VAD. And we'll touch on that in just a minute.
And as been pointed out, people are starting to notice that the words can signal whether it's capacity building. Now, as I mentioned, there's a full playing deck, and what I love is that some of the things that are in there for the capacity building is VISTA member designs, they research, they write, they create. That's very different than VISTA member assists, reviews, helps. Paying attention to those words can make a big difference. And just so you know, you can download this card game from the VISTA campus to help your organization understand the difference. This can be a great activity with your sub-sites and with some of your own staff to really help them understand what it is that VISTA is intending to do. And Erica, I believe if I'm correct, this is on their list of resources.
Yes, it's in that helpful links handout that you saw in the chat, and we'll be posting a little bit later on in the presentation as well, so you can download it.
Now, I want to admit, examine your VADs activities to ensure that their focus on capacity building can take some time and effort, because it can be tricky at times. And we just invite people to work with others in your VISTA project to explain the definition of capacity building and help them to confirm or correct the activities that you're proposing. We cannot stress enough how important it is that the VADs do not contain direct service, because a VISTA member service must be focused on capacity building.
A minute ago, I briefly mentioned the Office of Inspector General, so I'll quickly mention that you want to make sure that you create and update VADs that are in compliance. Because AmeriCorps VISTA is a federal program, like anything supported by taxpayer funds, we need to make sure that the program is well run, doing what it's supposed to, and spending money wisely. So CNCS does have an Office of Inspector General, whose office is responsible for preventing and detecting waste, fraud, and abuse. In summary, it's essential that you make sure that these red flagged actions are not written in the VAD. 1, taking over the work of staff. For example, someone who left the organization and having a VISTA take their place. That's considered replacing staff, and it's not allowed. 2, mostly doing administrative support for someone else or performing other activities not related to the VAD are also inappropriate work for a VISTA member. Just as Kathy said, VISTA members need to focus on capacity building work that's outlined in the VAD, which ties directly to the overall project plan that was approved by CNCS. And 3, the majority of your VISTA's work should be capacity building, not direct service. And again, as a reminder, even if you feel that a small amount of direct service may be necessary at the beginning of a project to help the VISTA member better understand their capacity building work, the VAD itself should not contain any direct service. I'll mention that we do instruct VISTA members that if they feel that they are doing any activities that are inappropriate for VISTA service, they should first talk to their direct VISTA supervisor, then their CNCS state or regional office, and if the issue is not resolved, or if they want to remain anonymous, they do have the ability to contact the CNCS Office of Inspector General, who takes all allegations seriously and, of course, conducts thorough investigations to ensure compliance with federal regulations and the terms of the VISTA program. So please be sure that your project is in compliance with VADs appropriate for VISTA service, and we'll all have a smile on our face.
I want to move us forward to talk a little bit about the community engagement for sustainability. If you remember that gray band that held the legs of the stool together, that's the community engagement. We want to talk about how the community is involved in the VISTA projects. A VISTA project engages residents of low-income communities in planning, development, and implementation of the project. The VISTA program places importance on involving members in the community, mainly because we want to make sure that we're listening to the voices of those we're trying to help. We are confident when we do that we're meeting the needs of the community. And as a result, we're collaborating on solutions with the community directly rather than just providing a service. VISTAs require that you incorporate input for the local income communities in all phases of your project. So that community engagement often takes the form of an advisory group, also known as an advisory council, board, committee, or task force. So you should consider if and how these may work for your particular project. You can also meet the requirement with significant representation from the low-income community on your board of directors. And keep in mind that it may not be that every VISTA member engages with community members, as it's ultimately the role of the project of which the VISTA members are just a part to ensure the community is engaged. So when I talk with VISTAs about this kind of work, and when we look in their VADs to see, is this present, we're talking about doing focus groups or key informant interviews to get program design and input or evaluation feedback. Sometimes it's structured community meetings for decision making or priority setting. In some cases, we've talked about asset-based community mapping to identify the physical, individual, and relational assets that are present. Sometimes it's appreciative inquiry to identify the strengths of a community or an organization. In some cases, we've talked about art projects as a data collection process in addition to the written text that may be gathered. We've also talked about preparing current program participants to become leaders and mentors for future participants. And frankly, the list goes on and on. This slide that you see in front of you is just an example of some of the things that can and should be in a VAD, spelled out so that the VISTA member understands the goal, the objective, and the activities, and so that the VISTA member sees the fulfilling of these particular duties of the VAD as part of helping the project really achieve what they want to in sustainability. So let's take a look and think about what you might have on your VAD.
It's time for us to hear from you now again. So in the chat, please go ahead and type some examples of activities of community engagement that you have had your VISTAs do. Obviously, if you're a new project, you may not have any examples, but some of you, it sounds like, have VISTAs and are in the process of creating new VADs for new VISTA members. So what community engagement activities have you included in your VISTA assignment descriptions? If you could, please provide some detail in your response so that it can help other people on this webinar also who are trying to gain knowledge and insight. As you know, as Kathy mentioned, it's really important that we deal with community engagement, community empowerment, because a VISTA project, the goals, the objectives, the activities of the project will not really succeed unless the community, the local community, the nearby community, whether it's geographic, whether it's, there's so many different types of community, but they need to be involved in the VISTA project. So it'll be good to see what your responses are in terms of how you, as a VISTA sponsor, project director, supervisor, etc., have incorporated examples of community engagement into your VISTA assignment descriptions.
And if you haven't in the past, what kind of things are you thinking about now that you are aware of that? That's something that we'd like to see.
See a lot of movement, so it looks like people are typing, which is good. Again, we know that some of these are thought-provoking questions, so you may not have an answer that comes immediately to mind, but just on the top of your head, if you have any examples to share or thoughts. Some examples we've seen are some projects. Okay, there's one from Barbara. Focus groups to get good information from those living in low income and poverty circumstances to determine if we are on the right track with our VAD. That's a great idea, depending on the size of the focus group. It could be a couple of people, it could be 10 people, but really specifically focusing in on an element and getting information from them about how they can work together to solve the problem. That's a wonderful idea. Thank you, Barbara. It's examples like that that really show how the community is getting involved, but also how the VISTA project is actively involving the community. So that way, as Kathy mentioned earlier, it really is a reciprocal relationship. So it's not just the VISTA project saying, here's what we need you to do to solve the problem. It's everyone working together with ideas. And I see Kate came in again with focus groups. This is a popular topic. This one with parents on how local engagement effort by school district is working for them. Really getting the parents and the family involved, because at the end of the day, they're going to need to be involved anyways. Kathy, are you seeing any other responses coming in?
I have not seen any yet. I just want to point out everybody's on the right track, and it may be something that you want to continue to give some thought to of what you're going to put in for your VADs going forward that will help strengthen them and really help the VISTA member see the engagement opportunity. Because of time, I'm going to move forward and talk a little bit more about some of the framework that we've talked about, if that's okay.
Let's do it.
So, in this particular case, what you see in front of you is from lots of conversations with supervisors at various sessions that we've had. And we've sat and we've talked about how can we strengthen the VADs and make it easier to create VADs. So together with the supervisors, we created this framework for creating the VAD. And in this particular case, we're talking and focusing right now on strengthening the objectives, because the goals will come from the work plan that you already created, a project plan that you created and submitted earlier. So this includes 3 different parts: the assess, which is the introduction stage of the VISTA work; the act, which is the specific capacity building action that we want the VISTAs to do; and transfer. This is where the VISTA members and the site complete the circle so sites can use what the VISTA members have done for long-term success. I want to first look at the first level, which is the assess portion of this. This is the introductory stage of the VISTA members' work. Often I've seen supervisors list the words attend meetings, which I'll be honest is in fact an activity that VISTAs will do. But if I'm really honest, that phrase, attend meetings, doesn't really add anything to their understanding about the capacity building that the VISTA members will do. And so I've had the opportunity to ask the supervisors, why? Why are they attending meetings? What's the ultimate purpose or goal of that action? And the list that you're going to see on this slide are some of their main explanations. The supervisors were trying to help their VISTA members start their work successfully. And so they said, because I want the VISTA members to, first of all, assess the current state of either our volunteer systems, our fundraising, our development, our communications or our marketing, our partnerships, our technology, and on the list goes. Choose whatever the ones of those that are relevant to your particular project. Another reason that they wanted them to do that was to identify and understand the key players and their part in addressing the community issues. They also talked about how they wanted them to understand the historical environment of the project and of the community. And last, to discuss how members of the target community would be engaged in leadership and implementation of the project. And frankly, friends, this is the heart of community engagement. This is where we get them a chance to learn more about the target community, what they need, what they want. And we just ask people to remember, VISTA members look at the VAD at your initial interview with them, during their VISTA member orientation, and at their in-service training if they're invited and desired to attend. So they're trying to understand what you're asking them to do. And if it's unclear, the VISTA members get really nervous, frustrated, and potentially they won't even tell you for a while, which can waste valuable time for your VISTA and the project. They're not able to move forward. You don't want them to terminate early, and neither do we. So it really helps to be clear and help lower the number of VISTAs who might potentially drop. The second level is the level 2, which is ACT. It's about creating tools and processes. These are the ones supervisors are most familiar with, because frankly, that's what we were looking at the card game, looking at how they were going to help build up those 4 legs of our sustainability stool. So if we're doing fundraising or development, just for example, something that's near and dear to my heart, we might have VISTA members, when we're talking about creating tools, have them create a database of potential donors with due dates, contact information, and application procedures. We might have them create a template for grant applications by program. We might have them create a guide for branding all communication materials. We might have them create talking points, a sheet to guide volunteers and staff when they're on a call so they can make the ask for donations. And if we're talking about procedures, perhaps we're having them create a training for volunteers on how to make the ask, or how to create the schedule for volunteers and staff to meet with donors. Those would all be examples of our actual act. And level 3 is the transfer piece. Remember earlier we said as supervisors we need to keep our eye on sustainability. And when I talk to VISTA members, I talk about all the capacity building activities that they'll be doing. Writing grants, doing assessments, recruiting volunteers, creating databases, all of that. It all builds capacity. But projects need to think about sustainability beyond a VISTA member's 1 year with the project. Transfer of knowledge, products, and relationships is what takes it to the next step. So when we're talking about transfer of knowledge, let's say, for example, that we have a VISTA member who's recruited volunteers. That's great. But here's the thing. Who else knows how to do that after the VISTA member is gone? Or if they created a database, also a wonderful thing. But who else knows how to create and update the database after the VISTA member is gone? Who can the VISTA member train so this can continue after the VISTA member leaves? That's the transfer of knowledge. When we're talking about a transfer of product, which is something some of you talked about earlier in your examples, what projects can the VISTA member leave behind for the organization and community to use? What step-by-step instructions, what training manuals, what pre-made training videos can be left? And last but not least is transfer of relationships. A VISTA member recruits volunteers. This is great. That's a wonderful thing. But here's the thing. Volunteers join because they like the person who recruited them. So how are VISTA members connecting the volunteers to the organization so they stay when the VISTA member leaves? Or, for example, let's say a VISTA member gets new donors. Wonderful. Relationship building is critical to getting and keeping donors. How are VISTA members connecting the donors to the organization? How can the VISTA members connect those folks with the staff and volunteers who are continuing the work? That's the transfer of relationship. In this particular case, in our example, we are saying, set up training for a new volunteer coordinator. This helps us transfer knowledge, potentially transfer products if we provide a training manual, and transfer relationships if we organize a social or other networking type event so volunteers can meet the new volunteer coordinator.
And as we talk about transferring knowledge, products, and relationships, I do want to quickly highlight here are 2 specific resources that are available on the VISTA campus. I won't go over them in detail because you will find them on the Helpful Links handout, and the link will be posted in the chat in a few minutes. So please take a look at that and check that out. I also want to highlight on the VISTA campus, there's a VISTA Campus Supervisor Cafe, also known as a discussion forum, where supervisors can easily share and connect with each other, which people have mentioned is a great resource and something that they really want to make use of. We'll go ahead and move on to the next steps. We've highlighted 5 quick next steps that we think are useful for you, and obviously you can add to them. After this webinar, you can start to develop and examine your big picture of your overall VAD and project plan. Communicate your plans for the VADs with your project staff and your VISTA members to make sure that everyone knows what's going on. Ensure that all of your activities in the VAD are capacity building and not direct service. As Kathy just highlighted, you want to plan the objectives and make sure you kind of follow the train of thought of assess, act, and transfer. Makes it easier to think of it that way. And then we also recommend that you attend the next VAD webinar led by the VISTA Training Unit, which we'll show you in a minute.